The red smoke rises on a brand new season for St. Louis City. Zack from Fleur joins us to lead off our show this week. And yes, we're going to talk about the current controversy involving certain banners that the club is banishing to the Shadow Realm, plus a new change coming to the pre-game march that just has broken tonight. We'll talk about that. We also are going to have a little bit of fun as well, as we are going to introduce at least one new chant to you tonight. Might be a second later on in the show as well. Also, what's more fun than a transfer rumor involving a brand new striker? All that, plus a final season preview, a breakdown of how we might be breaking down as fans over a tough 14-game start to our season. And Jake will have a preview of what is to come with Charlotte FC this weekend. And yes, we play soccer this weekend. Our long walk in the wilderness is finally over. I am the Drogba of Dogtown, Tom Franklin, and I am joined by the Ronaldo of Bethalto, Jeremy Clements. However, there's a rumor, Jeremy, that you may not be the Ronaldo of Bethalto for much longer.
Oh, is that the case?
I hear you might be relocating pretty soon.
We'll be over in Northampton. With my girlfriend. So yeah, that's coming. But so maybe the new nickname. Although I do have a brand new Ronaldo kit. That was just gifted
for the show. Oh what? Man, did you buy that kit for the show, Jeremy?
No, she did.
Very well, very well. Well, I tell you what. Whenever you do make your move, we'll have to work on a new name, or we might already have one.
Oh boy.
Well, that's called a tease in the business. And then I'm also joined by the Chris Wood of Crestwood, Jake Henry, also a noted Nottingham Forest fan, and kind of hard times for your Forest boys.
Yeah, and we thought it was bad here at City with our manager situation in the past. It's rough out there.
Well, at least we can't get relegated.
True. Not yet.
Yeah, too soon? Okay. And then Chris Gebhardt is the dog leash of the Metro East, and he is monitoring things behind the scenes and keeping an eye on our chat as well. You may have noticed if you're watching the live stream on YouTube, hopefully you're being able to watch. I'm seeing that it looks like YouTube is working again, so glad to see a healthy chat room going tonight. We are streaming live on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. on the Red Smoke Rising X, as well as the STL Soccer News YouTube, and we are now a weekly show, at least up into the World Cup break. So you're going to have to deal with us for a couple of months before you get a break from us. But I also want to give a special thank you to Pat Connolly Tavern. Now, last Tuesday, we had our first ever live show, and you can see it was a very good group and a very good turnout. Really, thank you to everyone that showed up. And yep, there is us in action right there doing our thing with the Tina Turner kit adorned above Jeremy Clement's head, almost like a little bit of a halo there. And then, yeah, it was just a really great time with some really great friends. And I also want to give a special shout out to Kayla Cleeschulte, who was our camera operator for the show this past week. And in fact, Matt Baker and Kayla's on the right, Matt Baker is actually jealous of us because we have a bona fide camera operator, and he was marveling at the fact that Kayla was panning around to the crowd and all that. So anytime we can make our peers jealous, we will do that here. But we love our peers as well. But thank you so much once again, Kayla, for once again giving us something that Flyover Footy doesn't have, because you'll never sing that. You'll never sing that. We have a camera operator. You'll never sing that.
All right, it's preseason, guys.
It's preseason. Look, I mean, Jeremy, you're a capo this year for games, and so you're still getting into the swing of things. We're all getting into the swing of things. Kayla, we tried. We really did.
I've never been gifted at singing.
That's fair. Me neither. That present never arrived from Santa for me, unfortunately. But you know what we do have tonight as a gift? Well, we have a special guest with us joining us tonight. And initially, this was going to be for much happier reasons. But unfortunately, we have to talk about some controversies involving the club. We have Zack from Florida Noise with us tonight. Zack, how's it going?
I'm wonderful, guys. Thank you for having me.
And we're glad to have the Totland of Overland with us.
I'll take it. Hopefully, I get on the field more this year than he did last year.
Well, and maybe this year too, depending on what DeMay thinks of our fullback rotation. But nonetheless, so we need to address the elephant in the room right away. So you may have seen over the past week or so the club announcing that it has changed. Well, not really even announcing it. It was announced through the supporters groups that there is a policy change and stricter guidelines around what banners and flags are considered political, and specifically saying that the Black Lives Matter and specific group flags within the LGBTQIA plus community are not allowed to be flown. Today, the Punks did announce that the Black Lives Matter flag will be allowed to fly this coming Saturday, as we are literally in Black History Month. But also something that's breaking tonight, I literally saw this maybe an hour before we went live, and Zack, you can kind of speak to this. There's going to be a pregame march and this Saturday, and it's going to be really cold Saturday, so we're going to have to get our ski mask out once again. But the march is going to be shortened, and I understand it's not because of the cold. What's going on?
The march is getting shortened because I'm fat, Tom. So, no, realistically, realistically, the march is it's fun. We all really enjoy doing it, but I don't think anybody ever really envisioned going around the stadium every single time when we were originally talking about the march. And sometimes it's really fun. On big games, we have a big crowd and there's a lot of people and there's a lot of excitement. The march is really incredible. It's a really fun thing to take part in. If you've never done it, the kids love it. It's just a lot of fun to walk around the stadium and chant like a goofball. And that is so much of what we do at Florida Noise, is just trying to have fun. There's a lot of people that take what we do very, very seriously, and I take it very seriously, but for the most part, we're all just there to have fun, man. And I think what really came out of the last couple years is that the march on certain times gets really arduous. It just, by the time you get around halfway around, and there's really nobody on the backside of the stadium, so once you get past the plaza, it tends to speed up and it's just kind of a sprint to the end. And it really wasn't working for us. It wasn't working for the way we wanted to try and engage the crowd to get more people excited about it. So we went to the club last year and asked for a different march route, preferably one kind of straight down Olive, and then make it so we don't have to go down the stairs in the northwest corner. And I have great news. We don't have to go down the stairs in the northwest corner. So we are going to, for this march, I'll give you the exact timeline. We're going to do our jam session on the street right around 12:30, maybe even a little bit before, because we got a lot of things I want to talk about. A couple of those new chants that Tom teased earlier. So we're going to start there around 12:30. The march is going to start right about 12:45. We're going to go straight up Olive. We're going to go basically around the barricades there and then come back into the plaza with the goal of being there right as the concert ends, kind of at 12:45, 12:50 there. We're going to do a chant or two there, and then we're all going to go in that gate at the, I guess, southwest corner. I'm bad with directions, guys. So northeast corner, probably.
I was gonna say, if it's a Hellcat gate, it's the northeast corner.
Hellcat. That's much easier to say than me guessing directions. See, this is what happens when I don't imbibe before I get on the air. My brain doesn't work. So so we're going to go in through the Hellcat gate. It's just going to be an easier ingress for everybody there. A lot of people jumped off at that gate anyway in the march, so this is going to really just kind of accomplish a whole bunch of things of hopefully getting more people excited and engaged with the music, and the energy, and then driving that directly into the stadium through by Hellcat, and really try and get some of those people engaged as well. So we're going to really, I think with that open space there, it's going to be a little bit better for us to come in, and maybe we'll do more of a Santos-esque march as they've done in the past. We might try and make that a little bit more of a tradition where we march into the section in a way that we really couldn't do previously, though Santos always figured it out. We have, different drums and different needs sometimes. So, but
I mean, is there, like, piggybacking off the comments, is there a scenario where maybe we do a longer march for a bigger match like SKC or the playoffs?
Absolutely. Now, what will happen there more than likely is we're going to do the opposite route of what we used to do. So instead of coming out of Louligan Street and turning left down towards 20th, we would then go the other direction and go around the stadium. So then we would come past the plaza at the end, again, trying to gather momentum and sound and energy moving into the stadium instead of using all of our momentum and then kind of us filing in on the backside. We're going to try and take all that energy and momentum and shove it into the stadium as we come in that way.
So that leads us into the banners. And so we had news tonight coming from the Punks that the Black Lives Matter flag will be allowed to happen this Saturday. But just in general, though, Zach, first things first, when did this come down from the club that these banners that we've had since inception are going to be a problem?
So the official word came last week at a meeting with all of the supporters groups and city. We had a real inkling that this was coming from last year with the person who got kicked out while also wearing a MAGA hat. I think that those of us who were in the know kind of anticipated that there was going to be a backlash. The backlash that has happened is really, really unfortunate, and it targets some groups that very much need support, and they're getting attacked on all sides. So I mean, many of us are getting attacked on all sides, but very specifically the Black Lives Matter and the Pride, or the trans Pride. We have quite a few trans supporters in the supporter section. One of my favorite human beings on the planet from St. Louis FC, one of our capos, found themselves as a capo and found their identity through St. Louis FC, and being a person who got up and led and realized that they were a different person than the person that everyone thought they were. So I think that those stories are really powerful, and there's community, and there's a way that community really connects us to the sport and the people that we go and see that sport with. And this is really kind of a slap in the face to those people who have put in literally hundreds of hours in the St. Louis soccer, to be then told that they can't fly a flag with their SG on it that also represents them. And for someone to say that that's political, people aren't political. Human beings are not political. Someone's sexual identity, someone's skin color is not political. So you can call it political. You can say that. The team can call it whatever they'd like. Human beings are not political. And so somebody's identity is not a thing that you can ban. So you can ban the flag, and all of us will wear it as a cape, because we don't care. I don't care who you think is a human being. Human beings are human beings.
Absolutely. And so but one thing I do, when we did want to ask you as well is, we've seen these individual statements come out from these supporters groups, and, it's great to see them. And, it does sound like everyone's pretty, at least on the same page. But do you think it would be more or less effective if there was just like one statement on behalf of all the supporters groups as opposed to splitting them up?
I think every supporters group has their own impetus, their own identity. The Santos statement is not going to be the same as the Fleur de Noise statement, is not going to be the same as the No Goal Patrol or the Gen City. So I think, Yes, there probably is some value to the groups getting together and making a statement, but we all know that the more cooks you put in a kitchen, the harder agreement becomes. And so when you start trying to get what's important to Santos and what's important to Fleur de Noise and what's important to everyone else, the minutia gets really, really tough. And that's a thing that we found not just in this situation, but in, countless other situations of just what is culturally relevant. You could say culturally in the sense that I'm, a white guy or a Polish guy, and somebody else is whatever their heritage is, and that's a culture. But I think also culturally, as groups of human beings, we all group together with people that we understand and that make sense to us. And I think that cultural relevance also speaks to why the groups at different speeds and at different levels of intensity have put out messages. So I don't think the way the punks want to provide their message is ever going to be the same as the way Fleur de Noise does, because we have different group ethos. And that's not to say we don't believe the same things, but we are going to come at the same idea from different angles.
Well, and so it literally kind of lends itself to the argument of, if voices are being silenced by, these banners being removed, then you're coming out with multiple voices from multiple perspectives. And so it's almost, a bit, almost of a counter in of its own way. But, speaking of countering, to a lot of people, this feels like the club is kind of going back a little bit on some of the things that it has kind of preached since the beginning. Is that the kind of feeling with you and other supporters groups?
I had a conversation with someone today from the St. Louigans who expressed exactly that thing. And we were having a conversation. I brought up the person that I was talking about earlier. I'm not going to blast them. I didn't ask for their permission to drop their name, so I'm not going to throw anybody's name out that didn't ask to be talked about on a podcast. But we were talking about two different people, and she was talking about a person of color that felt very personally targeted by the Black Lives Matter flag, and they're trying to understand why they even want to put time, effort, and energy into a thing that just told them they don't matter, or that they're not worthy of representation, that their existence is political. And I have that same feeling in thinking about how many hours that Fleur de Noise puts in, and Jeremy is starting to get a little taste of, what the extra life is. And I think all of our podcast friends know, everybody who puts in time, energy, and effort at any level understands how much of a slap in the face it is to be told that, one, the thing that you told this club was going to be from the second that they started advertising it to you and coming and personally telling you, we're going to do this right, we're going to be this thing for the community. And then to have it, at least from our perspective, I'm sure from their perspective, they don't see that they've changed anything. But from our perspective, very much feels like they are going with what is the safe option and not what is the option that they promised, and that was truly what got so many of us to actually buy in. And anyone will tell you, I still don't know that I fully bought into the club, and I run an SG. And that's not to say that I don't love this club, but this club has always, they took, they came in, and if you're not familiar with the history of St. Louis FC, when they came in, our club died. So St. Louis FC died, and a part of a lot of soccer fans that were a part of that died with them. So it's hard for you to say that my whole heart can ever be with City, because a part of my heart is always with the thing that died. But I think that so many of us did get to a point where we felt like we could buy in, because so many people did give us reassurances that we're doing it the right way, and we're trying to build this in a way that everyone feels safe. And now people straight up do not feel safe anymore. I have trans friends who do not feel safe because they've been told they are not a priority, they do not deserve representation.
Yeah.
And I'm sure City won't see it that way. I'm sure someone will say that I'm spinning words, but that's what I've been told. So I can't put words into someone else's mouth for what they think they're doing, but I can tell you what people have told me about how it hits them. And I've had people in my group say, man, I don't know that I can show up and do this year because they don't speak for me anymore.
Yeah, and I totally understand that, and it just, it gets people, looking for alternatives. Gateway Football Group, team name announced next month. Anyway, but yeah, you just wonder, what other alternative is going to step up there. But I will say, I've heard from people that that have talked to like their ticket reps and the representatives that the front office is getting absolutely slammed with people that are upset over this move, and you would almost expect the club to maybe do something in the coming times. Also, I know, Zach, you've been working on getting the message out in the media as well, and other supporters groups have been as well. But Jake, you had a question.
Yeah, Zach, I just wanted to ask, what could we or the average supporters group do to show our support for these groups and for the SGs in their mission to fix this wrong?
So, I mean, what many of us are doing, there have been some loopholes that, either have been pointed to us or that we have, tried to work out that they're not going to police clothing. So what that probably means is there are probably going to be people that wear MAGA hats into the stadium. Great. Thank you for telling me who you are. But I will tell you who I am, and that I will be wearing some kind of pride flag or trans rights flag or Black Lives Matters flag. I can almost guarantee you I'll be wearing my Black Lives Matter kit from Forward Madison. I'm going to do whatever I can to put the message that they aren't willing to share. We're going to try and put that message out there just as loud. So if you're going to take away one sign, we're going to put out 20, we're going to all wear 20 capes to remind you that, you can take away one thing, but unless you're going to physically kick us all out for wearing clothes, it's going to get tough. So, yeah. I think really the thing that we can do is, if you are willing and you feel comfortable, wear a Black Lives Matter shirt or cape. Wear a trans flag as a cape. Donate money to those organizations that are doing good work. The Metro Trans Umbrella Group does great work in St. Louis. It's not a local organization, but one that I have personal experience with. This is a Trevor Project. I know the Trevor Project has been there for people when they have needed it. So there are really, really great organizations that are doing work in this space right now, and just looking out to see where those people need help. Because I'm not the person to ask. I will tell you, I am a very vocal ally. I will be the first one to yell and scream about an injustice that I see. And people always say, well, you're a cis white man, why are you doing that? And that's exactly why I'm doing it, because you're going to scream back at a trans person or something else. Fewer people scream back at the 6'4", 330 pounder. It just doesn't happen as often. So I'm not saying people don't, and I'm not saying I'm looking for a fight, but I am saying that I'm going to use my gigantic whiteness to the benefit of anybody that I can, because that's all whiteness is good for at a certain point, is to try and use whatever culturally I don't even know what the word I'm trying to say is, but the way society is set up, I have privilege, so I must use the privilege that I have to try and lift up the voices that are not being lifted up and are not being taken care of.
Zach, I've got a couple of questions for you. You've talked a lot about representation, which I think all agree is important, but I think that's the massive counterpoint that I've seen across social media. I don't ask you to speak for all the supporter groups. I ask you to speak for yourself when I ask the question, why is representation of this so important at a soccer game, at least to yourself? And then furthermore, the idea of city's hashtag of all for city, seeing this action taken, how do you feel that relates into this conversation?
Yeah, and I think that really goes back to the thing I was talking about earlier with, I have multiple friends I have seen go through transitions in my time, and they've done it entirely through their love of soccer. And I'm not saying they transition because they love soccer. That's an insane thing to say. But what I'm saying is they have lived their transition through soccer. They have become a new person through soccer. They have found a loving, accepting community through soccer. And to suddenly feel like a place that told you they had their back, who went out of their way to have fan councils specifically at the LGBT and queer experience to try and understand what those people need and what that community needs, to then go so far the other direction and say your representation doesn't matter to us. That, I can't imagine the mind fuck of that. Excuse my language. I can't imagine that. Like, I can't, though, and to understand the queer experience is to understand feeling marginalized all the time, to feel like you are different than so many people around you, and that the movie and the TV show that you watch, maybe less so now in 2025, but in 1995, there was not a queer icon on TV outside of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Willow. You know, like those, they were so few and far between that you didn't have those people that you could represent who you were and see yourself there. So to really find yourself in a community and find that place where you felt like you belong, and then to have the arbiter of that space that to say that you don't matter. It's like coming out again and not being accepted. And again, that's my personal feeling on it. Somebody might be like, "Hey man, that's not how I feel. Stop talking for me." And I'm not. I'm saying empathetically, that's how it feels like it would feel to me. It would feel like you're saying, you're not okay, you're not accepted here, you're not good enough. And that, to think about saying that to one of my friends makes my blood boil and makes me want to fight everyone in the room. And so that part of it is I think where, you know, the feeling is, Jeremy.
And Zach, one last question for you. You mentioned wearing your Forward Madison Black Lives Matter kit, which I think is a fantastic idea. The North End, as far as I am aware, has always been a place where I know we say opposite team colors are not allowed on game day. Is there going to be any extra policing or sensitivity around those kinds of kits that are not St. Louis City specific or St. Louis City colors? I want, just so that everyone knows what they can or could not wear. I want to make sure that it's, you know, still seen as a safe space in this time.
Absolutely. And I honestly can't tell you how they're going to be policed. What I have told everyone that I have talked to, and I will give the same information here. If someone stops you, this is the same as if you're in a union. This is the same as if a cop speaks to you. The first thing you say is, "I'd like to speak to my SG representative," and then you plead the fifth and you stand your ground until a SG representative gets to you, and then we'll figure out what we're doing from there. So realistically, we are going full union. You're not my supervisor. Get Caleb, get Araceli, get a union SG member. It doesn't necessarily, if you're a punk and, you know, we can grab Santos or whatever. Obviously, if you want to feel represented by your SG, go ahead and get your leader. But realistically, if you have a problem, send for me and I will grab Caleb and we'll go figure it out, because I will fight for my people and for our supporters to be able to do to be able to respectfully represent the people they want to represent and feel included in that space.
And one final question on this. Aaron Leak in the chat asking this. He's someone that does not sit in the supporters section. So what about fans around the stadium? What can they do?
I believe that the same rules apply to everyone. I don't think that there is a separate apparel rule outside of that you can wear, you know, other teams' uniforms or whatever, or kits in other sections. I think you can get away with that. I don't think there are any restrictions. So I would say if you want to do those things, please put something on your body. If you don't have a pin or a sticker or whatever that you need, come to any of the supporters groups. Also, if you are going to wear a Forward Madison kit and you want to be extra special, I'll get you a Florida Noise sticker and you can slap it over the kit name, and then it's a Florida Noise kit. So, we've got a lot of different ways that if somebody is having a problem, we'll figure out a way to make it not a problem, I think. So I think as much as we can, we are actively going to encourage people to wear flags as capes, wear whatever clothing you have in support of those things. Me personally, I'm much more worried about supporting my friends and the people that I love than I am wearing City Red or Tina Gold. So realistically, that's what I'm going to be doing. I can't speak for anybody else, but I would say if you are not in the supporter section, we would love to see your support. I know my friends would love to see your support. So anything you can do, please, if you feel the same way I do about human beings, please email your ticket rep. Let them know that you're disappointed. Let them know that there are probably monetary repercussions for the way that you feel. Me personally, I will not be buying food in the stadium. I won't be buying merchandise. I won't be buying anything that City is selling until all of this is reversed and we have a probably an apology. If I'm being honest, I think it's insane that this is where we are. So, again, that's my personal feeling. That's not necessarily Florida Noise's feeling. Florida Noise says you can buy whatever you want. But me personally, City will not get another red cent from me that isn't paying for my ticket to get in the building.
Who was it that said that you can stop a man, but you can't stop a movement?
I have no idea.
But I feel that applies in this instance because this is something that needs a collective voice. And I'm kind of with you, Zach, in that I pre-ordered this, the black shirt before the news came out. But that'll probably and I did get a Yeti, but that'll probably be all I spend.
Yeah.
And instead, I'm going to take the money that I would have spent for, Energizer Park, merch and food, and I'll go eat from the food trucks at Lugan Street, or I'll go to the Santos and, have their food. I'll support those businesses, people that, are more representative of not just me, but everyone. So I think this has been a great discussion, and I think a lot of good points were made. And Zach, thank you so much for giving us your insight into that situation. And we want to end this on a fun note, guys. So you've been Jeremy. You're as a new El Capotan of the game day experience. I understand we got some new chants coming.
Yeah, haven't been quite. I haven't got the title yet. Still in training. I'm gonna call myself a capo in training. But it's been a lot of fun to get involved in and increase my participation in game day activities. But yeah, Zach, it's been exciting being kind of in the know before we get to share the news with fans. I think Florida Noise dropped one of the new chants on socials this morning. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So this one, I'm gonna look. I put the recording out. I'm going to really encourage you to go listen to the Red and Black brass band version of this. We ran through this twice, and it was 30 degrees out when we recorded this. So the instrumentalists, as wonderful as so many of our instrumentalists are, were going on basically sight reading a piece of music, and we're playing in very, very suboptimal music playing conditions. So we have a recording of this. It's fine. It's fine. It is
We're
what
gonna
it
play
needed
it
to be.
for everyone, if that was all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. It's, but I'm giving you my warnings now.
All right, go ahead and roll that beautiful theme footage.
We are the city, watch us roll. We are the city, 314. STL go. We are the city, 314. STL.
Here comes the good part, Jeremy.
STL, CIT, why you mad? You can't be. STL, CIT, why you mad? You can't be. STL, why you mad? You can't beat. STL, why you mad? You can't beat. Oh, we are the city watchers. Oh, we are the city 314. STL. Oh, we are the city watchers.
This is great.
We are the city watchers.
So I think this is going to be a massive vibe in the North End this year, Zach. Real quick, though, if folks were around, I think it was during the inaugural, might have been the League's Cup run. This song might sound a little familiar to folks, right?
Yeah, so Red and Black did some stuff in the stadium during many of the protests. So if you did go to any of those games, Red and Black was around. They posted a bunch of videos today of them playing it live. Hopefully we will go out and get them into the stadium at some point. Obviously, they get paid to play music, and we're a bunch of people who show up and pay to play music. So, it's definitely a different vibe. But I would love to have them come out. I heard this song, I want to say like a year ago, and I truly have not stopped talking about it since then. I really do believe that this one, when you do it live, it hits in your soul. And like I said, our version's fine. I ripped out all the drums. I put other drums in it because our drums were not good. So you have a lot of vanity in Zack there. That is why that sounds the way it does. But go listen to the Red and Black Brass Band. It's posted on every social media. We posted links to, every streaming platform. If for no other reason, the Red and Black Brass Band are just incredible. Like, their music is fantastic. And they're St. Louis born and bred. Go support them.
And what they did during COVID too was great, going around, and bringing cheer to neighborhoods that weren't very cheery because, well, it was COVID. That's where I first heard of them, and I think that's how they got their start, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I know nothing about their history. I won't attempt to speak for them at all, but they are, like, just as musicians, just really, really fantastic, and their music is killer.
Well, and I will say that I did get an advance listen of the new chant that we just heard at the Mardi Gras parade. I heard it along the route. So if you were at the Mardi Gras parade, you would have heard that already. But we also, at the end of the final third portion of the YouTube stream and at the end of the podcast portion, we're going to have another new song that you're going to have to learn for 2026. And I think you'll enjoy that one as well. But Zack, really, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your knowledge. And hopefully we can move forward together and change some minds.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the platform. And hopefully I didn't get myself rebanned.
Well, we'll find out Saturday.
Oh, wait, we will. We'll find out if I get an email after this.
All right, Zack from Florida Noise, thank you so much. And now we're going to get into the business of soccer, literally, as we have a new transfer rumor to get us going here, a Tom Bogert bomb on Monday morning to get you going and getting out of bed, as we might have a Joao Klauss replacement of sorts. So Bogert announcing that St. Louis City is nearing a deal to sign Venezuelan international forward Sergio Cordova. He is currently 28 years old and playing with Young Boys in Switzerland. And I'm avoiding the obvious jokes about the most unfortunate name in European soccer. And he's also 28. Moving on. This is a loan to buy option, and that option would cost roughly $2.5 million per report from Cesar Luis Merlo. Jeremy, you spotted that. That would put it maybe around the ballpark of Conrad Vollum, maybe a little bit more. I don't think we've ever gotten an official dollar figure on Vollum, but according to Transfermarkt, he does have a current market value of $1.7 million. And Curiously, that is a step down from the $2.1 million that Vancouver received a couple years ago by selling him to Turkish club Alanyaspor prior to a stop at FC Sochi in Russia, and then he ended up winding up with Young Boys, all within a span of 2 to 3 years. Now, as I mentioned, he does have MLS experience, having played a couple seasons in MLS with Vancouver Whitecaps and Real Salt Lake. In 59 games with those two clubs, he scored 15 goals and added 2 assists between both clubs. It's worth noting, though, that he scored 11 of them in Salt Lake and was kind of considered a bit of a bust, not kind of in Salt Lake as well, but also a bigger bust in Vancouver, because I think they had higher hopes for him and he just didn't pan out. And then in 61 appearances in the Swiss Super League, he has 14 goals and 6 assists. So a physically gifted forward who hasn't been able to put it all together. And briefly, guys, should I be feeling vibes with this one, or should I be more optimistic that this isn't just a Band-Aid to get us this summer?
It's a Band-Aid. I'll just jump in and call it that. Let's be honest about this, guys. He's a guy that's had minimal success. The biggest problem in Vancouver is he was a DP. They made him a DP when he got brought in to Vancouver. He was the general manager there, Axel Schuster, called him a proven goal scorer. So, which he didn't do. He only scored 4 goals in 24 games for Vancouver before being sent out. So, he is a stopgap. It's a loan with an expensive option to buy that, frankly, given his track record, I'm not expecting him to warrant. It's a Band-Aid to give Corey time that gives us depth and a body up front to add to the attack, which is badly needed because Caden Glover isn't ready.
Nope.
And I don't know what McSorley will contribute. And at the same time, gives him flexibility because it's a loan. A rumored loan. We don't know official details. I'm confident that this is real and this is done. Bogert reported it, and sources have kind of alluded to it being a smart move and a no-brainer for the club recently. So I'm just waiting for the smoke, but stopgap to give Corey Ray time to find a DP in the summer.
Well, and something go ahead, Jake.
Especially since the Merlot report had it going to mid-year, so that is likely summer if this goes through.
That is true. And so it really does kind of, just scream of, get a body in there, because your striker options at this point are Simon Betcher, who, again, just cannot buy a goal in 2025. And then you have Brandon McSorley, who, if you are a McSorley believer and watched him at City 2, he can score at City 2. We've seen flashes at MLS, but is it enough to really rely on him to contribute, big minutes? Personally, I just don't think so. But I definitely wanting to see. I'm curious what he does, because I watched a little bit of tape on him before the show today. The one thing that kind of jumps out at me with him, for when he's got good size, he's about 6'2". He does use his size pretty well. He tends to get a lot of header goals, a lot of crosses in the box. That's another option in the box on set pieces and crosses, along with Mbake Fall and others. But the other thing I've really noticed about Cordova is that he has really good footwork for a forward. Like, he scored a few goals where he gets into the box and he can stop on a dime and pivot and, finesse his way, whether it's around a defender or whether it's around the goalie. He does seem to have good dribbling skills. So this might be a we can fix him kind of a situation. But again, with summer coming up, you're going to have a better crop of players to choose from. And unless Cordova comes in and sets the world on fire in before the World Cup break, he's got 14 games to do it. We'll see how it goes.
And just one other thing, Tom, on him. If you look at his track record, he doesn't have a lengthy injury history. Availability is key. He's played a lot of minutes. So, and again, maybe he's dynamic enough to play 10 and add depth there as well. So we'll see.
We will see. And of course, if this signing does become official, which it is not at this point, nor do we have any smoke in the app at this point, we'll certainly talk more about him. And of course, where he actually fits in on the roster. I would assume, Jeremy, he would take probably a senior roster spot. And that leads us kind of into our 2026 preview.
Yeah, so speaking of the roster, the first thing to call out, anything we talk about with the roster tonight, depth chart, anything like that, it's not finalized. The roster compliance date is not until 7 o'clock on the 20th. So Friday night, 7 o'clock Central Time is when the roster has to be compliant per MLS rules. But yeah, if that signing comes to fruition, it would, as we know it, bring our senior roster full. Again, we're still crossing our fingers that one of Ben Lunt or Josh Yarrow are on the supplemental slot. We also would still have some open supplemental slots in addition to that, so we have flexibility. And again, I think that you guys, Tom, you and our man behind the curtain, our producer and friend Chris Gebhardt from St. Louis Soccer News, you guys did a great job with Steve and Joe on the City SC report on their crossover episode. It's up on the YouTube channel here as well. So give that, and wherever you find your podcasts. So give that a listen if you really want to get more into the nitty gritty on the roster depth.
And I will just say on the City 2 episode, the first part, and it's a two-parter, me, Chris, Steve, and Joe basically took a scalpel to the entire roster, and that was basically the entire first part where we went into like over players pretty in depth. So if you want more analysis on the individual players, that episode is out on YouTube as well as wherever you get your podcast from. Part 2, which goes into more topics, will be out probably on Friday.
That's that. Yeah. Again, give it a listen. I caught part 1 myself. I wasn't able to be there. Neither was Jake. So it's good stuff. I really heavily recommend it. Can't wait for part 2 as we come out. And again, guys, I guess when we talk about depth, where do we see our depth looking? Do we feel more confident now about the depth that we have on the roster heading into the season? Again, I know we're not going to go too in depth into the position by position, but overall we have a screen on there that, again, our graphic assumes the Cordova loan is done. But looking at that big picture, along with the trialists in Palmer Alton, Cooper Forcellini, and Zack Lillington, who are not officially signed yet, but if that's our depth going into the season, how do we feel?
I'm more confident than I was a couple weeks ago. If you really notice on this chart, we have multiple names on every position, really. So that's a really good sign.
And not only that, but like you're looking at some of the players, like for instance, Mekhi Joyner can line up on either one of those 10 spots, probably. Ostrak, we know that he can play the 8 when needed. We have actual, honest to goodness, right wing back depth for once with Thomas Totland and Conrad Vollum. And I'm really curious how that playing time shakes out because, again, we paid some big money, to get Conrad Vollum back here. And he is someone that is considered to have a very high pedigree, and a lot of other MLS teams were kind of sniffing around him this offseason as well. So curious how that kind of shakes out. We know Vollum can play on either side. Technically, Tolton can play on either side as well. We just haven't really seen much of him out on the left. The thing that I'm looking at here, I'm still worried about that center back depth. And even though we're at a 3 center back, rotation, we're not going to have Mbake on opening day. We're not going to have Falou Fall on opening day. And you are looking at a situation where you're probably looking at something like Polvara, Baumgartel, McNaughton, if I had to guess, a back 3. And I think we'll talk about that a little later on. But then if you're looking at who is backing them up, you still have Yaziel Orozco, who is still, I would say, fairly unproven at this level. He had flashes last year, but then he kind of fell off. You have Kyle Hebert. We know what Kyle Hebert is at this point. Josh Yarrow. We know what Josh Yarrow is at this point. And in the preseason, and I don't think we're not going to talk much about preseason just because you can't look too much into preseason, and also we ended it kind of rough, and it's also kind of old news at this point. But I will say the one thing I'll pluck from that is that I don't think Zack Lillington is ready for MLS play. He had the yips when he had the ball in his own end in the Coachella game. And you can argue that he directly led to the second goal because he and Yaro were playing kind of hot pocket with each other, and it just looked ugly. And so, but that's okay. He's a college kid. Sometimes you don't translate into MLS quality straight out of college. In fact, more oftentimes you don't. And so I don't mind seeing Lillington, getting a lot of time at City 2. And Jake, is that what you're kind of expecting from Lillington at this point? And like a Forcellini, is that they're going to get the bulk at City 2?
Yes. Especially Lillington. Get him right, get him ready, and get him prepared for this. I honestly, I'd say next MLS season and beyond. Is Lillington definitely next season? Forcellini, I could see being a longer term project, but yeah, I really expect them both to be at City 2 next year or this year.
Yeah, I can definitely see that as well. But otherwise, I mean, there's other areas where I'm not as concerned about. Like I like the fact that assuming Forcellini is going down, you still have Chris Durkin, you still have Miggy Perez, who something we talked about during the City SC report episode is whether or not Miggy Perez has earned himself a roster spot on the big roster. And Jake, we watched him a lot at City 2, and it really did feel like as the season went on, he got more comfortable and got more confident.
Absolutely, and he had 10 goals last year to show for it.
And that was as a center mid, which is pretty impressive. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how everyone shakes out. Like there's some players, and I think we will probably be talking about some of our X factors coming up here. But there's some very interesting players I'm looking at right now that are not starters right now that I think might be hungry to become starters or become active contributors.
And just one or two other little notes on the depth chart. So you'll notice just highlighting Tomas Ostrak, Falou Fall still injured, so they will not be available at the weekend. Mbake is still not in St. Louis. Hearing his visa is done, but will not be available for game one. And we honestly, unfortunately, with the statement made yesterday, we don't know quite what the status of Edu Leuven will be either. So we do have some question marks heading into week one. We'll get more into the preview here in a bit, but I wanted to call out those extra little details on this graphic as we get in there. So, guys, we've talked about kind of who's playing, where they're playing, but what games are we looking forward to? Are there any key things on the schedule? Really, that's the next question I have, is just kind of a refresh. We know the season opener is Saturday. What things from these key dates, kind of the highlights of the season look, jump out at you? We talked about this some time ago, but we've got that World Cup break. But coming out of the break, it's Kansas City. But what jumps out at you guys?
I mean, go ahead, Jake.
Oh no, I was just going to say the September 26th game against Red Bulls.
Yes.
Yeah, that is, I will, especially going off of what we heard from the preseason game. It did not sound like a great game. So I'm wondering if, well, granted it was the first preseason game of the year, but I wonder if they can learn from that preseason game and what went wrong and just apply it there.
Well, definitely. And it's also our first ever regular season game with Red Bull New York. They're the last team that I think we have yet to face, and it's year number 4, which make it make sense, MLS. Make it make sense. But I'm also, I'm just on a personal note, I'm looking forward to the other New York game on April 4th. It's our first trip to New York, period, against New York City FC. And selfishly, I'm looking forward to that because it's my first trip to New York City, period. And so I think there's going to be a few of us that are even in the chat here tonight, Jerry Hayes, Aaron Leak, and others that I think we're planning on a pretty good weekend there. And that is one that I'm personally am really, really looking forward to. But what I'm not looking forward to, Jeremy, is the fact that we have to play those Blue Bastards from Kansas in the middle of the week twice.
We do. It's going to be a tough time for some challenging to us fans to get to the away fixture for sure. I'm not crazy about it. MLS doing away with some of their rivalry week or rivalry weekends due to the World Cup break, so forcing more games midweek. It's interesting that the rivalry games, nonetheless. But guys, I mean, we've got a lot of first times. We're going to New England for the first time in DC as well. And then of course we close out the regular season, or the home portion, I should say, on Halloween. I believe that's a 2:00 start if memory serves. So that's a day game. So we get the first game at home in the afternoon, last game at home in the afternoon. Hopefully, as we get near that decision day in Houston, City might be ready to surprise a few folks getting, and be in playoff contention. And part of that, guys, is going to be what that schedule looks like. We've got highlights here, but guys, historically, there's always kind of been talk of segments of a schedule. 5-game blocks is what we kind of did during the Carnell era, and so we broke it out for you by opponents. There's 5 games in the first month, 5 games in the second, and then the last bit before the World Cup only has 4. But what you're seeing on screen, if you're watching us on YouTube, is what the stretches of the schedule will look like based on average points combined from those teams we're playing. And guys, right out of the gate is the toughest stretch we're going to face.
Yeah, and this is not something you want to see when your club is adapting to a new regime, a new head coach, a new style, just new, and you have to do that against Charlotte FC, San Diego FC, Seattle Sounders, the Death Star of MLS, LAFC, and then also New York Revs as well. 55 average points among those 5 teams is a tough way to go. I personally, and Jake, you can kind of, let me know if I'm wrong on this, but I still think this sets up for still St. Louis City to make a playoff run, at least a wild card run. I know Bradley Wright Phillips picked St. Louis City to sneak into the 9th spot of the wild card. I always liked Bradley Wright Phillips ever since yesterday. But it does set up very nicely when you're coming off that World Cup break. So say you have a tough 14-game stretch. You get to lick your wounds for 2 months. Hopefully we get to see some of our own roster players in the World Cup, like Song Bin for South Korea, and then Canada might have Kyle Hebert and Lucas McNaughton. McNaughton also going to be competing for a spot, so he might, be hungry to perform in those first 14 games. But then you're coming back off the World Cup break, and it's basically almost like a complete restart, and you get the wooden spoon contending Blue Bastards from Kansas leading right away. You have LA Galaxy, who people think might be better this year and might contend, for, a playoff spot or middle of, maybe even the middle, like 4 or 5. I don't see it personally. I'm not there with them yet, even though they do have Bambi Legs himself, Joao Klauss. They still don't have Ricky Puig, and they'll never sing that, at least for 2026. But then you have Colorado Rapids, who never inspire me. You have Real Salt Lake, who don't inspire me. And you have San Jose Quakes, even though they have a really nice Grateful Dead themed kit this year. I just don't see anything that wows me coming out of that break. But like, Jake, do you think, am I crazy to think that this actually sets up nicely for City?
I mean, yeah, it sets up nicely. I don't really agree with you on the LA Galaxy, but this isn't an LA Galaxy podcast, so I'm not gonna go too far deep into that. But I will say, playing SKC out of the break twice in, like, I know we have it broken into 5 games, but in that 6th game, just to throw that out there, I think that helps. And yeah, I mean, like, none of those except the Galaxy, in my personal prediction, really inspires me as well.
So what I'd say, guys, I know you're talking about the second half, but let's go back to the first half of the season for just a second before the World Cup.
Sure.
So here's the thing. Yes, it's going to be challenging out of the gate, but Seattle's got some pieces they're kind of retooling. They lost some pieces in the transfer window. So we're some question marks there. San Diego doesn't have Chucky anymore, as far as we've heard. San Jose's got Timo Werner in a new piece, but still yet to be determined how he's going to work out. And we've got DC, the wooden spoon winners from last year, in that last block. So to me, the reason that I think this is favorable, to your point, Tom, is if we can play competitively and at least get, I don't know, I don't want to throw a record out there, but if we can beat the teams that we think we should beat and maybe steal a couple points here and there on the road or even get a few wins on the road, going into the World Cup break, you're going to have the transfer window opening on July 13th. So when you come out of it, you're primed to figure out what you're going to have. Seti Toikert's going to be out of contract, potentially, if we don't keep him around. And that gives you the chance to retool and make that playoff charge, Tom.
Well, yeah, and I will say, if you even split up the first 14 games even further, the first 8 games, I would argue, I don't know where we get 3 out of any of those games. Maybe Charlotte, just as kind of, a new coach bounce. Maybe the Revs, who have been kind of down, a little bit in recent years, although they've been pretty active this offseason, to be fair. But then after those first 8 games, after we get done with Seattle for the entire season, thank God, because we get those 2 games right out of the way. Quakes, uninspiring. We beat Austin FC, and Jeremy, we noted at Pat's last week, they looked terrible against us, last week. They looked very beatable. Rapids, again, LAFC, that's going to be a problem. But then DC United, Jose Kojima's boys. Take your drink, by the way. They're not good, and I don't think. I mean, they're expected to be a little better this year, but not. I don't know. They don't inspire anyone. So you could even make the argument, Jeremy, that it does set up to where maybe we do start getting a little bit more of momentum going into the World Cup break. It's just that first 8-game stretch is tough.
It is, Tom, and the thing too within that first 8-game stretch is we do have some non-conference opponents. We have the Revs, we have NYCFC in those first 10 games, and Charlotte as well. So when you talk about a non-conference strength of schedule, City is among the least difficult, 26th most difficult in non-conference strengths of schedule, playing Charlotte, New England, NYCFC, DC, Toronto, and Red Bull New York, compared to like San Diego, who is facing a much tougher road in their sophomore season. Cincinnati's got a tough schedule against Western Conference opponents. So the point of bringing this up is, while we're talking about difficult games, and the thing too, early in the season, we're talking about how difficult that first segment's going to be, but all these guys are in preseason form, so it's kind of unpredictable what can happen.
It really is. And again, it's MLS. There's always going to be unpredictability. Like, something that Chris and I and Steve and Joe were talking about Sunday is the fact that, like even in the Western Conference, like you can kind of figure who your top guns are going to be in the Western Conference. It's going to be LAFC is going to be up there. That Seattle Sounders are going to be up there. Vancouver Whitecaps are going to be up there. And you would assume San Diego FC is going to be up there. But that's not even a firm assumption. Like, I think San Diego FC is still a playoff team, but then once you get beyond those teams, you get into what I call kind of like the mushy middle, where you have a lot of teams that could finish anywhere from like 5th to 12th, just depending on how it goes. And I remember last year, St. Louis, they weren't out of playoff contention until basically the very end, and that's just because of that mushy middle that we had in the Western Conference, where you had a lot of teams that were tightly compact. So really anything can happen, and anything can happen on a home opening night. And so we are going to take a look at Charlotte FC. That's our first opponent, our first home match of 2026. It's also our first home match in 2023 as well. And let's go ahead and get a preview from Jake. What can we expect?
Well, Tom, this is only the second all-time meeting between these two opponents, like you have said. And the first one, as you also said, and as on the graphic, was a 3-1 win against them. Very different teams. Completely different teams. I think Charlotte has gone through, 2 or 3 managers since then? We've gone through maybe even 3 or 4.
Do we count interims and caretakers?
Yeah, that's why I couldn't really
and caretakers that became interims. It's confusing.
Yeah, but yeah. So we're just completely different teams from that first matchup. So now, what do you guys I don't even know like what stands out to you guys against this.
One thing that stands out on that graphic is we will not see the return of Enzo Capetti, our first ever public enemy number 1, because he no longer plays in MLS, and I'm disappointed about that. Jeremy?
Yeah,
No, I mean it's one of those things that you remember, right? It's the first for the club, the first home win, the first home match. So you will always look back on it in kind of a friendly way. Interesting that game featured an own goal as our first goal credited to City, and then the second goal, the first one scored by a City player at then City Park, was a penalty kick goal.
Yeah.
So, but no, a memorable night at now Energizer Park for everybody there. I will hear more about that in the final third from you guys who were there. I was not, unfortunately, but no, I think to your point, Jake, it's an extremely different team as we talk about scouting the crown.
And also, really quick, just to let you, I'm gonna get the people in the chat primed, because when we come into the final third, which will be here in just a couple minutes, I want to hear from you guys what your memories are of that first ever home match against Charlotte FC. Were you at the stadium? Were you watching from home? Were you watching from a bar? Do you have any sort of memories from that game? We're going to talk about that in the final third. So save your responses for the start of the final third. But Jake, you've been scouting the crown.
So yeah, that Charlotte FC team had 10 or more goal scorers, something we have never done.
We'll never sing that.
Yeah, right. They had Aidan Taklamati, Pep Biel, and Crystal Palace legend Wilfried Zaha. They finished 4th in the East with 59 points and a 19-2-13 record. The incoming signings are pretty good, and I mean some depth, especially at the goalkeeping spot. What besides Henry Kessler, what stands out to you, Jeremy, about the incoming players?
The biggest name is Luca De La Torre, the Celta Vigo product who was on loan, I think, with San Diego FC last year. Didn't meet expectations of them to make the big money move for him, but he finds a home in Charlotte, so that's the big one. They also made the transfer of Pep Biel permanent and brought him in. There's also a name on there too, in David Schnegg, who was linked to City for a little while as well. So, some big incomings, but also the one thing to talk about on them is they're one of their leading minutes guys last year. It departed the club in Malanda, the defender, the center back, and that's who Henry Kessler is supposed to be a replacement for. He wasn't listed as a top option for them according to Top Bid 90. And he won't play in the first game due to injury. But those are the things that jump out at me. Tom, what catches your eye?
I mean, what catches my eye is it's going to be interesting. I think if there's an opportunity for City this Saturday is the fact that, they lost Alisson Malanda, and his replacement is lost for this game, Henry Kessler, who, we loved Henry Kessler here in St. Louis, but health was not his forte, unfortunately. Charlotte was a team last year that really, I think, surprised people a little bit, and now that is leading to, as you kind of alluded to, Jeremy, some expectation that they will be, a real contender in the East again. I am honestly, I think you mentioned Luca De La Torre, and he did not have a great time in San Diego. He had a lot of buzz as a former, U.S. men's national team player, and kind of a starlet, coming up through the youth ranks, and it didn't really work out for him very well in San Diego. So, does he go and get a fresh start in Charlotte and kind of become the talisman for them that Edouard Leuven for us? That will be interesting, and he'll be a part of of that midfield three for Dean Smith. So there's still going to be a challenge. There's still going to be a challenge this Saturday, but to me, I think a lot of where they go rests on what Luca De La Torre they get.
And one other thing for them too, they have a designated player in Liel Abada, who a lot of fans in Charlotte, just listening to them, they're the folks who cover that team in recent days, they want more from him. They expect him to return to form. and because he is a designated player. We always had that conversation here about Klauss. So what will be interesting to see how De La Torre, Abada, Zaha, Idan Toklamati, Pep Biel, how that all comes together for Dean Smith. And it's going to be a real test for the City defenders. Real quick, though, I do want to mention the projected center back pairing that will play or is expected to play for Charlotte is Tim Ream, the St. Louisan, and Andrew Privet. So while Kessler won't play, Andrew Privet's expected to be that left center back in their back four.
And I'm very excited to see Toffolo as a former Nottingham Forest guy. So that'll be really exciting.
Yeah. And
So I
they're
guess
also really healthy. Kessler's the only one that's going to miss as far as I listened to Dean Smith yesterday. Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say at this point, I guess my big question, is what is our projected 11 going to look like? And we made a bit of a projection here, just based on what we know and what we don't know. And of course, one thing to note is that we still have Betcher starting at the 9. Of course, Cordova's rumored to come in, but there's no way he's going to be ready by Saturday. Let's just face it. But about this lineup, so we have Simon Betcher up top with Marcel Hartl and Song Bin behind him as kind of a left and right 10 playing underneath. We have a midfield, and I need to qualify this as a midfield of Rafael Santos, Edouard Leuven, assuming he's okay. Which if we're doing he's available for home games and not away games like we did last year, in theory he should be available. But then we have him starting alongside a Daniel Edelman, who I was very impressed with during preseason, and I'm really curious to see more on how he does. We're going with Conrad Vollum as a starter at right wing back, I think just because of the investment we made in him, but I would still expect to see a lot of Thomas Totland at some point. And then a back three, Dante Polvara, Timo Baumgartel, and Lucas McNaughton as our back three, because we don't really have any better options right now. And of course, the one and only our DP, Roman Berkey, in net. So any concerns over this projected lineup?
That back line. I mean,
Yeah.
like McNaughton has a very deep injury history. Polvara is not even technically a center back. Baumgartel's just not the fastest player. It's very concerning to me.
So, just real quickly, talking about Paul Vara. So, talking to him today at Media Day, he says he's comfortable. And Yohan Demay even said at times that that he's confident in Paul Vara's ability, citing his ability to play the ball with both of his feet and keeping the game in front of him. The only question I have is, we made this a consensus with McNaughton. I will be curious to see if it's Orozco. Orozco started a number of the preseason games in that right center back spot. So to me, that could be a shout. Other than that, I think this is probably the best we've got.
Yeah, it's really hard to see otherwise. I mean, I guess the only question would be, like for me on the wingback position, is if they start Vollum on the left and Totland on the right, and then Santos comes off the bench. I mean, it sounds like we're going to be seeing a lot of Celio Pompeu out on the left. And again, the way that St. Louis played their wingbacks, they almost played them literally as wide midfielders. And so that is no accident the way we have this lineup here, a true 3-4-2-1. But it is nice to have options out there on the wingback spot. So I guess finally, scoring predictions. It's the first game of the year, so there is absolutely no pressure and very little to base our predictions off of at this point. I'm going to start with Jeremy. Jeremy, what is your scoring prediction?
I think it's going to be a fun day. I think it's going to be cold, maybe a little bit of rain, so you don't know how much the conditions play into it. It's early days for DeMay. I'm going to say it's going to be a 1-1 draw.
I'm going to go 4-1 Charlotte.
Ouch.
I just don't trust that back line against the attacking, just all the forwards that Charlotte has. I just don't trust that back line.
I was going to say, Jake, where did DeMay hurt you?
It's nothing against DeMay. It's just,
I know.
I got that gut feeling, so I'm just like, yeah, not feeling it. So 4-1 loss is my prediction.
Yeah, chat not very happy with your prediction there, Jake, but it's okay. And I'm gonna chicken out only because I predicted this on the City SC Report show, but I also am gonna pick a 1-1 draw, and I am going to take a wild guess and say that St. Louis makes it nervy and they get a late equalizer, and I'm gonna say that equalizer comes from Simon Betcher because he needs to score goals. 1, 2, 3, let's go, Betch. That is my hope. So we'll see how it goes. We'll hopefully next Tuesday's show will be a happy show when we're talking about a St. Louis City win, or at least a good performance against Charlotte. But we will break down the game for you as well and preview the next opponent, which will be an away game at San Diego FC. Oddly enough, on March 1st, which was the exact same day and the exact same location that these two teams played in last year. So just a weird little factoid about that. I want to give a quick shout out to Flyover Footy and Matt Baker, Stu Holgren, Santiago Beltran, and Phil Grooms. The crew is back this Thursday night at Blue Jay Brewing. They're going to have a live episode of Flyover Footy at 7 o'clock. Hey, live episodes of podcasts are kind of all the rage right now, so it's the cool thing to do. So I'll be there, maybe not right on time at 7, but I'll be there at some point. And really, that is going to do it for the podcast portion of this episode. I want to let you guys know that if you are listening to the podcast portion of this show, we're going to lead you out with another new chant from Florida Noise this season. If you are watching the live version on YouTube or X, that will come at the end of the final third. So I am your soccer zombie, Tom Franklin.
I am your capo in training, and real quickly want to say thanks to Zack from Florida Noise and everyone for watching. Jeremy Clements.
I am Pedro Stan, Jake Henry.
And that was our first Pedro reference, by the way, so we've made you wait for that drink.
Had to get it in. Had to squeeze it in.
Nicely done. Tucked it right in the corner there. And this has been another episode of Red Smoke Rising. And remember, alignment. All right. We have made it to the final third. Man, that was a meaty, beefy episode of Red Smoke Rising. Of course, again, thank you, Zack, for bringing on a lot of context to the big issue surrounding the club right now. And I want to keep this light, though, and I want to kind of continue the conversation about Charlotte FC because this is another home opener against Charlotte FC. We had, of course, the first ever match in 2023, and it's got me a little nostalgic about that game. And I went digging through my photos, and I remember that day I didn't take a whole lot of photos and video, and I had more video, including the Leuven penalty kick goal, but I deleted it because I was clearing space out of my Google Photos drive, so it's just gone permanently. But I want to hear from you guys in the chat right now, and there's over 100 of you right now that are watching right now, so thank you so much for your support, guys. Really, it is awesome to see you guys. Round the saddles, if you will, and circle the wagons. That's what I was thinking of. And so thank you so much for your support. But I want to hear from you guys. Where were you on March 4th, 2023, the home opener against Charlotte FC? Were you in the stadium? Were you watching at home? Did you go to Luligan Street but didn't have a ticket to the game? Did you watch on Apple TV? Did you watch in a bar? I want to hear and see some of your memories from that game, and we'll talk about them as this segment goes on here. But again, I went digging through some of my own materials from that game, and Chris has the video ready to go here. This is the only video I have from that game. These are my season tickets in 2017. I was standing over the supporters section, and then that is the start of my scarf wall. So you have the inaugural match, you have a St. Luligan scarf, which has been relocated, and then that top scarf, that St. Louis City scarf, that's like the original scarf that was for sale in the team store. You can now, if you go to Portland, Maine, and you go to the Portland Zoo where the Portland Hearts of Pine supporters go, and you look up on the ceiling with all the other soccer scarves, that scarf is now in Portland, Maine at the Portland Zoo. I donated it to them because they had a Sporting KC scarf and they didn't have a St. Louis City scarf. And so that made me very upset. But that is literally all the footage I had. But Jake, you had a lot more footage, at least relative to me anyway. And tell me what were your memories of that opening match? And I will say, Jake, we are going to start off with that Leuven penalty kick.
Yeah, so Tom, I got you covered on the penalty kick. So I actually went to the game with my aunt, and we just so you can hear me in that video celebrate after the goal has already been scored, and that's because I didn't know it went in. I thought he had sailed it high. So I'm just like, oh, he totally didn't. No, he scored it. So you can hear me with the extremely delayed reaction there.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, yeah, he did roof that thing. Like even from my vantage point, I was worried that he was going to sail it. But yeah, a lot of great memories. That first tifo was great. Like that's that is that is the one. Like there's still a GIF of that in when you go to social media sites. It's always like when you type in St. Louis City SC, it's always like one of the first ones that comes up. But just a lot of memories from that day, and it just for me kind of hammered home the fact that we had something special going on at Energizer Park. And the one guy among us who actually, Super Ravioli, checking in the chat, he was watching at home with his mom, listening to her be upset that my dad took his best friend and not her. I would be upset too. I think your mom has a valid grievance there. I mean, I get it; it's your best friend, but I would not have wanted to miss that first day either for anything.
Isn't your wife supposed to be your best friend?
Who?
Isn't your wife supposed to be your best friend though?
I wouldn't know that as a single guy, so I can't answer that.
Same.
Yeah. I can answer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Off topic. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I mean, Jeremy might know what that's like in the near future, but
At some point,
yeah.
Hey, we're not dropping hints, okay?
No, we're not doing that. Kayla, cover your ears. But Jeremy, you were the one amongst us that wasn't at the game, but you were still watching.
Yeah, no, I was at home. I was home with family and watching. I was the only one who really cared the game was on, but I enjoyed it. I still remember celebrating that third Klauss goal, and just it was great. I was really nervous after Capetti opened the scoring. That was the game I learned to hate Enzo Capetti.
Everyone did.
And I just didn't know what to say, and that game started the whole the Jeremy countdown of, okay, when can I get there? How soon can I find my way into City Park?
Yeah, and I'm with you on that because I was there for the opener, but then for the next couple of games I wasn't there, and I was set to be in 217, and then I had work stuff going on, which Jeremy knows something about that. But yeah, I missed a lot of games, and I kind of, after a while, we had that hot run at the start, and I was just like, I'm not going to miss much more games. I'm going to find a way to get to these games, even if I have to clock out of work on a Saturday at 7 and then race to Energizer Park and catch an Uber and get there right on time for the game. I ended up buying that first season a lot of single tickets off of SeatGeek that people were trying to resell, and so I got a nice little sample of the different places in the park, that you can watch the game. I know, Jake, for that game. For the Charlotte game, you were in a different spot than where you normally were.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was called, but I was off to the side, in one of the right behind the seats that are right next to the benches.
Okay.
I was right up back there. So don't remember the name of it, but it was a really fun time.
Now, was anyone in the chat in the supporters section for that first game? I really want to hear from anyone that was in the supporters section. Byron Tim, he was in section 121, maybe 10 rows up. His lasting memory is having his hand gripping the edge of the In Our History TIFO panel. Now, that's a memory. A memory that you can take for the rest of your life. Just I can't imagine what that was like being there for that first game. And Aaron Ed was there. JT Kirsting was there as well. Is Zack still in the chat? Because obviously Zack would have been, one of the Florida Noise leaders. But like, I really want to know like what the vibe was in that first game, because you're going into that game, you're coming off of St. Louis FC, so like you have an idea, of what a supporter section is supposed to be, but this is St. Louis City. There's different chants. You have to, as you'll find out, Jeremy, being a capo in a section as big as ours is kind of like herding cats. There's a lot of coordination involved. And so if anyone in the chat was in the supporter section can kind of give us an idea of that vibe, let us know.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting experience. I mean, even just learning the different hand signals and the way the coordinations go between the chants, not even just between the sections, but from the drum line and the band leading the way and kind of giving us the lead on what we're going to do and how that's going to go. It's just going to be it's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, I can't imagine what that first night must have been like. Must have been magic.
Yeah, JT Kirsting saying there was a lot of beer showers.
Yeah.
Which are the best showers? They're definitely better than Fago showers. If you've been to an ICP concert, I have. Kyle Van Clee was under the TIFO, and he said it was really wild. Looks like JT might have been under the TIFO as well. Amy Murr, section 127, which you should know that because if you see Amy before every game, she has these bracelets with section 127 on them that she makes for people. So if you see Amy before the game, find her and get yourself a bracelet, because hopefully, Amy, you've made some more. We'll find out on Saturday. And of course, if you've met Amy in person, she's a sweetheart. Aaron Ed was in Austin for the inaugural match, so he had the real first game experience, and he was already on a high. And then to win and get it home, we were losing our minds. Amy knew she didn't make a mistake as a season ticket holder. I didn't either. Like that first game, that was like slam dunk, absolutely. And Jake, did you feel that way after that first game?
Absolutely. I mean, I wasn't in my ticketed, like my season ticket seat. Because I'm a supporter section season ticket holder, but it was such a vibe. I mean, like nothing will ever replicate it.
No, and I wanted to not take a lot of photos just because I wanted to soak in everything and not have to worry about like constantly pointing my camera at stuff. But I do kind of regret not taking more, just because it's just one of those time capsule things that you'll never forget. And for folks that weren't there, it's just it was such an important moment. Chris Gebhardt chiming in from behind the curtain. He hoped that it was a blast so my wife would get into soccer. And I can verify for a fact that one Alicia Gebhardt is quite into soccer and also a big Forward Madison fan. Also, Amy, I want to apologize. I have forced you into hard labor now because you are now frantically making bracelets, and I'm so sorry about that. Yes, Carly, these bracelets are dope. Go find Amy at she'll be at Luligan Street. She usually hangs out at the Santos as well. Get your some. I got like 4 or 5 from her over the years. She's great. What's not great, Jeremy, is some of the season predictions that we have for St. Louis City. And we wanted to get to this during the pod portion, but we had a great conversation with Zack. What are the experts saying about St. Louis City this year?
Well, it's not great, to put it lightly. The MLS pundits and put out some expectations, but we're going to start with Soccer Wise, popular podcast of some former MLS staffers, Tom Bogert, David Goss, and Matt Doyle. And so they put their over-under projection for St. Louis City this year in terms of points at 42.5. For some perspective, where would that be compared to where they put everyone else? Well, it would be tied for the 7th lowest in all of MLS and put us right around 11th in the West. And in terms of who's over, who's under, Matt Doyle put us over, so he says we'll end up with more than 42.5. Gass and Bogart have us at under 42.5. Guys, initial reactions to hearing that from those guys?
It's pessimism when you have, David Goss and Tom Bogert saying under 42.5. Now, to be fair, Sporting KC, I think they're projected to have like 30, and all three said under that. Like there is, I mean, remember guys, it could always be worse. And worse is the Blue Guys in Kansas this year. So at least we're not them. Thank God. But I will say, weirdly, 11th in the West. I have to admit something. If you have not listened to the City SC report crossover, I mentioned that a few times, but I want to call back to that because we did our season predictions at the end of the part 2, which will be coming out later this week, and I'll spoil it for you right now. So they asked me first where we would finish in the standings, and I led off with, I'm going to be an optimist, and I'm going to say 11th. And then everyone else guessed 8, 9, and 10. So guess who looks like the jerk at the end. But 11th would be technically better than we were last year. I don't think it's crazy to think that we could end up with a better record than last year. I mean, we still got Marcel Hartl. We still have Leuven. We're going to get a full season of Song Bin. Conrad Vollum's going to finally play in one spot, in the spot that he's most comfortable at. Falou Fall and Mbake Fall could make, some big strides this year. And so I'm choosing, even though I only picked us to be 11th, I'm choosing to be a little optimistic. So, but only a little optimistic, Jake, so I can be just a little hurt when they disappoint.
Yeah, and I'm just glad Doyle's on our side now after the whole decoding MLS debacle. But
well, Lutz is gone now, so that's why so that's why he's on our side again.
Yay, I guess. I don't. No, but I'm optimistic. It's just I don't know what else to expect. It's going to be a testing year, like for us as fans, I mean, and a testing year in terms of what's on the field.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a year of growth and a year of finding out who we are in this new regime under Yohan DeMay. Although I'm very encouraged by the style. And Jeremy, we can kind of talk a little bit about that, is just, at least in the Austin game, talking about playing a high pressing, but like, it's not like energy drink soccer where it's just, there was a certain kind of frenetic energy about that. With DeMay, this is just from my observation, it almost seems more like a positioning thing, where he's got players deployed to be ready for a press.
So that's exactly right. And here's what I will say, Tom. I think for as much as we've made the buzzword alignment, if you go back and you listen to Yohan talk a lot, that buzzword for him is structure, because that's what is driving the press. The way he is structuring his team, the way he wants the players aligned tactically. You can see very clearly if you watch some of the moments in the Austin game where those press points are. You can even see moments where they get really compact to reset and reinitiate that press. So it's going to be interesting to see how this system takes shape, because right now we're not in the final form. This is the early days. He's had 28 practices, I think he said was the number. He said 28 training sessions, 6 games. This is early days, so there are going to be moments, and to kind of go back to what Harrison Crow said from American Soccer Analysis, he said there are going to be moments where it's going to look good. There are going to be moments where it looks bad. and times that it's not going to go well. But, and this is the important thing, I think the structure and long-term success is being built, and that this team looks like it has all the right ideas of how to do it, end quote. But bringing it full circle, he said we're probably not a playoff team, though going all the way back to the Bogert Soccer-Wise guys' predictions, 42 points would be an improvement from last season of 10 points. We ended the season last year with 32. So jumping from 13th to up to say 9th, 42 would be at 9th in the West last year. So
and just think about how much of the drizzling, whats we were, in 2025 for much of the year. And again, we were still competing for a playoff spot towards the end of the year, thanks to our favorite Scouser, David Critchley, who glad to see him back at City 2 this year. But yeah, again, this league is weird. It is volatile. There's a lot of parity, and you have a lot of, just again, that mushy middle where, you have your halves, 3 or 4 halves, you have 2 or 3 have nots, including KC. And then you just have that kind of quagmire in the middle where, really there's not a lot that separates these teams. Now, I would say that St. Louis is on the bottom periphery of that mushy middle. So I don't think that I think predicting playoffs at this point is reckless optimism. Yes, Jerry, 2026 is the year of zombie optimism. However, it's baited optimism because it's still St. Louis City. I just want to see improvement. I want to see certain players improve. I want to see Corey Ray in the summer have a firm grasp of what this club is and what this club could be, and start really shaping the club, because again, he hasn't really had a chance to truly put his fingerprints on this club yet. So we're kind of getting a lot of the John Hackworth holdovers that were re-signed at the end of the year too. So again, this is but Kayla, you also mentioned kind of earlier on in the chat that it's kind of nice to go into this season without those high expectations. We're not making the playoffs, hands down, Carolyn. Okay, not this year, not the last 2 years. This year, the whole tone seems different, and it's a more realistic tone. And I think at least it's setting us fans up for realistic expectations and expecting that we may not be great this year, but hopefully we can watch this team and see some silver linings. And some of those silver linings could be in the form of some X factors, and I mentioned earlier, there's players, when I was looking at the depth chart, there's players on that depth chart that aren't necessarily starters that I think have something to prove. And my X factor this year is going to be Seti Toikert. Seti Toikert. Remember when we brought him in mid-2024? He was coming over from Hannover 96. He was a proven performer in the Zweite Bundesliga, and a lot was expected from him. And in the tail end of 2024, he looked like he fit the bill. He was a dangerous option up top, and he had confidence. And then 2025 happened, and he wasn't fully healthy. He lost his confidence, and he wasn't the same Seti Toikert last year. And he comes into the season not having an assured role in the starting lineup. He also is playing for a contract because his contract is technically up in the summer. We could extend it to the winter if we wanted to. But as Carly Davis says in the chat, we're St. Louis, and holding out hope is what we do. And I am holding out hope that Seti Toikert can still make good. I think he's got it in his locker. He just needs to get it in his head and in his heart. That's my X factor.
I want a healthy Tomas Ostrak because he is also playing for a contract, and I think he has a lot to prove there.
So for me, Tom, you and I have talked previously, and I agree, Seti, but for the sake of the pod and being a little different, I'm gonna go with Sang Bin. $1.6 million transfer cash trade, I believe it was last season, in a contract year. I feel he's a very dynamic, pacey guy. We were really enamored with how quick he was. Seeing the way we've played in the preseason, It feels like he's set up potentially perfectly to be that guy that can run in behind and get on the end of long balls and stretch the defenses. So I'm going with Sang Bin.
That's a good shout. And Sang Bin is someone that has something to prove himself because he got kind of left out of the reckoning in Minnesota. And he comes here and he's got steady playing time for the first time. And I'm really excited to see how he fits in. And then, Jake, just to kind of your point on Ostrak, remember, he makes $800,000.
Yeah.
He is not a cheap boy, and he is someone we've kind of seen flashes out of, but hasn't been able to make it work because of injury or just because he's been playing out of position. And so I that's a good shout as well. Real quick, I want to guy everyone in the chat. So it is now almost, it's not about 9:45. I like to think everyone's had dinner by now, but maybe some of us are thinking late night snack. We're getting hungry. So I want to know, guys, what are you looking forward to eating at Energizer Stadium? Now, again, we talked a little earlier, with Zach. Zach's not going to be buying any food inside the stadium. Some of us might be making that same call as well, which is totally fine. But, for others, a lot of people, when they go to the game, eating food at Energizer Park is a big part of that, just simply because we support local vendors, and it's just dang good food. So I want to know, guys, now that the season is getting going, what kind of food that you are looking for at the stadium, and this leads into some new food options. We have 4 new food partners coming to Energizer Park this season, plus another addition that I thought kind of flew under the radar, but we'll get to that. So our new places to eat are Taco Buddha. If you've ate there at South City, Biscuit Town, Motortown Pizza, and Jeremy, I'm going to talk to you about this one, and then Goshen Coffee Roasters. And so this is going to be a new coffee place that is going to be throughout the stadium, and it sounds like it's going to be available in just most vendors. So Jerry Hayes looking forward to that iced coffee. Taco Buddha. Now they're going to have 3. They have 3 brick and mortar locations across the region. They're bringing their tacos. Biscuit Town is a breakfast concept from the team behind Neon Greens. Handheld options and biscuit sandwiches, which could be very good comfort food in a year where we might need comfort. But Jeremy, Media Day today, you had a chance to experience Motortown Pizza.
So I did. So if you saw the release from the team and everything they've done on social media, they had a really nice, what looked to be like a Detroit-style pizza. I saw the boxes today for Motortown, and I immediately was like, yes, Detroit-style pizza, because, frankly, I love that. That's one of my favorite styles of pizza. But I was pleasantly surprised. They had a New York-style slice. It was very good. It was cheesy. It wasn't overly whelming one way or the other, saucy. The crust was nice and thin, but it wasn't super crunchy, but it didn't have the flop to it, so it was stable and had good flavor. It was a very, very nice slice of pizza. It's a place that I would definitely frequent. I will say, though, on the subject of food, Tom, as I've just kind of pulled up the app to kind of just look through and see, because it is now updated with who is there and who is not. I'm sad to see Fattened Calf.
Yes.
No longer there. I loved the Fattened Calf, the Filipino barbecue they're still down on Cherokee Street in their brick and mortar, but I loved their food. So it looks like they're not going to be there. But the one place, Tom, that I do want to just really quickly mention that I'm excited about is Biscuit Town. I love a good breakfast biscuit. So I'm very curious to see how that works.
Go ahead, Jake.
I'm excited. My 2 go-to are Beast, and then I also love Farm Truck. Tom, at Blues games, I get the I don't even remember what it's called. Oh, brisket mac and cheese.
Yes, that's a favorite, and I'm seeing a lot of shouts. I'm seeing a lot of shouts for Soul Taco in the chat as well. Mm-hmm. I love Soul Taco. For some reason, though, my stomach doesn't. Like, I don't disagree with a lot of food, but that's but for some reason Soul Taco doesn't agree with me. But otherwise, I love them. Now, the big thing, the thing that is kind of I feel flew under the radar. Kyle disagrees, is that there is now going to be a Hellcat happy hour at Energizer Park. So Hellcat Bar, which I'm kind of glad they're actually utilizing this space for something just besides being a bar at this point. It's going to be a pregame destination for fans for the first hour after the stadium gates open, which is typically 90 minutes before kickoff. Fans can enjoy $5 draft beer and food specials. I feel, guys, this is a reaction to two things. Number one, if you go to City 2 games, you can get $5 beers there. One attraction that City 2 has is the fact that it's, an affordable day out. And so I think this is a reaction to people that are wanting affordable options inside the stadium. But I also think, I'm also wondering if this is meant to attract fans going inside the stadium earlier. What do you guys think?
Tom, that's my read on it. I hate to say it. You get in the park earlier, you're going to maybe increase the chance that they get to a vendor or even go back to City Goods. That's all about
Bingo.
getting people through the door to buy more.
I get there right as gates open, so it's like always looking for something to do, and there's plenty, but the Hellcat opens a whole other door for that.
It really does. And again, I'm just kind of glad they're using that space for something, and we'll see how it works this year. I mean, I think it's an interesting idea to, get some affordable options out there. Again, for me personally, a big part of the experience of going to a St. Louis City game is Luligan Street and the Santos pregame. And I guess this year, Blue Jay breakfast is going to be a thing this Saturday, which everyone's talking about that. I'm kind of curious about that this Saturday. We might check that out. But like for me, it's not even about necessarily hitting up those locations per se. It's hanging out with your friends outside the stadium before the game, having drinks, having laughs, having, soccer talk, or just really anything. It's about the community. And so I don't know if I will be taking advantage of this personally. Kyle also noting that there will be non-alcoholic stations throughout the stadium, offering fans a curated selection of non-alcoholic beers, mocktails, and other zero-proof options. I'm seeing a lot of comments in favor of that. I'm kind of surprised, guys, that it took so long. And honestly, it's something I didn't even think of. I guess we never had until now.
I didn't even think.
No. I mean, it's nothing that I would look for personally, but like I can understand if, there are people that are, maybe, recovering from alcoholism or trying to get sober or trying to stay sober. I think it's a very hard thing. And this is someone that, has dealt with alcoholism and is, not me, but just with close family members, is that, when you're an alcoholic, it is very hard sometimes to go out into a sporting event because you're constantly just inundated by alcoholic beverages everywhere you look. You have ads, you have concessions, you have vendors, you have the beer man, going up and down the hallway, and it's just you can't escape it sometimes. And so I'm glad for those folks that are either going through alcoholism or have been victims of alcoholics before. At least it sounds like they're taking some consideration into that, and I think that's a big plus. But
it's a great shout. It's a great shout. I mean, I'm not going to get into the weeds and some of the tragedies we've seen in St. Louis sports that have involved alcohol, but it's a really, really good play by the club here, and I'm all for it.
Same.
Yeah, and and good question from Kayla in the chat. Does anyone know where the new Boeing Club is going? Jeremy, have you heard where that's going?
I haven't. I have not, and admittedly, I have not yet asked. But hopefully, I'm sure we'll see signage. I should have looked around the stadium today, but I did not get a chance to look during media day. Which, by the way, just want to plug this. Keep an eye on our socials. We've got a bunch of content from Media Day. We didn't get to it tonight on the show, so we'll get it up on socials. We've got some stuff from Dante Polvara. We've got an interview with Timo Baumgartel, some words from Roman Berkey, what you can expect from Makai Joyner from the season. So we've got a lot of insight from the players that we got the privilege to talk to today.
Yeah, I saw some of your footage from that, and really cool that you got that up close insight. And watch for, I will say, just to give you guys a little bit of a preview, watch for the Dante Polvara stuff, because I thought Polvara had some very interesting stuff, including a nice little nugget that we haven't heard from him yet that Jeremy was able to extract. So look for that. Speaking of things to look forward to, tomorrow night is, of course, the City Live at the Foundry. And so, Jeremy, you and I and Kayla are going to the 6 o'clock show. Jerry Hayes, I think she's going to the 8:30. I know someone in No Goal Patrol has an extra ticket just because he's kind of going through a bit of a health issue right now. So if anyone wants to go to the 6 o'clock show, you can just let us know. So that's coming up tomorrow night, and then Thursday is a flyover show at Blue Jay at 7 o'clock. Hopefully, I'll see a bunch of you there. Friday, is anything happening Friday? I don't think so. And then Saturday is, of course, the day of days, the home opener. So the day that we've all looked for. So we got a lot coming up. And actually, no, I take it back. Friday. Louligan, second shift. That's going to be happening later this week as well. And of course, part 2 of the Red Smoke Rising City SC report is going to be out on Friday as well. But again, Friday is Louligan's night at second shift. So if you're looking for another excuse to hang out with your soccer friends, go to second shift on Friday night and hang out with some Louligans before you hang out with the Louligans again on Saturday. So.
And real quick, Tom, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
For anybody who wants to know what the coach is going to say, Thursday is press conference day.
Yep, and Jeremy, you're going to monitor that and have updates from that as well.
Yep.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, everyone. 124 of you sickos that have endured almost 2 hours of Red Smoke Rising. Thank you guys so much for your support. Zack, I think you're still in the chat as well. Again, thank you so much for coming on earlier today. It was a really great chat with you, and I really thank you for your insight. And of course, thank Pat Connolly Tavern as well for making this happen. And also Soccer Zombie watch-alongs during the away games. That's where I'll be hanging out all season long. So have a good night, everyone. I think I'm going to go... it's not Energizer Park food, but I think it's time for a snack. So,
Tom, did we have that other chant as an outro?
Yes, we do. Thank you so much for reminding me. So we are going to leave off for all of you that have stuck around to this point. Great catch, Jeremy. The second chant that we can reveal tonight for Florida Noise this season. So we're going to play that out. Have a good night, everyone. Chris, roll that beautiful bean footage.
All right, let's go bass drums. Come in on this. Dale City. Dale St. Louis City. Dale St. Louis City. Here we go.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night, everybody.